Recognized Uncle Walker D01. Recognized Emily of Arden D12.
Hello, team. Thanks for joining us for episode 11 of Whelmed, the Young Justice Files Season 2. Welcome to the cave. My name is Rich, and I'm here with my... Not a sidekick? You're still not a sidekick. There's got to be like a next rank above that. How about just co-hosts?
It's up to you,
man.
Oh,
wait. We're in the cave?
It's up to
Didn't
you.
they blow that up? This is a disaster. My co-host, Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi, everybody.
Remember like 30 seconds ago when we said let's stay on track and be professional?
Yeah, I remember that. See how well
Out the
that
window.
goes.
If you would like to get in touch with us, you can find us on Twitter at the YJ Files, on Facebook at Crashing the Mode, on our website crashingthemode.com, on theyjfiles.tumblr.com, and at our email address whelmedpodcast@gmail.com.
Your fight is with me, alien. I am Earth's guardian, its greatest champion, its secret champion.
He is not listed in the Krolotean database, Master, but their records may be incomplete.
Miss Martian, take the others and leave. This is my fight alone.
And with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's hand it off to Emily for...
Hello, Megan.
The title of this week's episode is Cornered. The release date was January 12th, 2013, just 1 week after the previous episode that was out on January 5th, 2013. The in-episode date was April 1st through 2nd. The director was Doug Murphy, and the writer was Nicole Dubuque.
Special guest voice credits. So Brighton James as Static Shock, which I'm super excited to see Static making an appearance in here. But I was just thinking about a conversation I had with somebody on Twitter who was saying that he was disappointed in this particular version of Static Shock, which is a bummer. So, you know, Static, I think, had a really strong impact on a generation of DC animated watchers. So I think seeing him show up so late and kind of in a relatively minor role right now might be an issue, but hopefully, I mean, my guess is he's going to show up next season pretty much all the time.
Probably.
So I would guess. So let's see if that makes it better for his bigger fans. Of course, we have Vanessa Marshall as Black Canary and the uncredited Jason Spizak as Billy Batson. And it's funny, if you listen to Billy in both of these scenes that Billy's in, the first scene where Billy first tries to use that lightning power, that's definitely Jason. And the second time is actually, you know, just his regular voice actor doing Billy. He says something like, one more time, Shazam, or something. Anyway, it's weird.
Voice acting, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's it. We don't have any other new special guest voice credits, so let's get on with the mission.
Just in time for your next mission.
In our pre-credit scene, get just a quick little scene of a strange little robot dude detailing the powers and abilities of some of Earth's greatest superheroes to what appears to be a three-eyed intergalactic big game hunter. That's it. That's all that happens before the credits.
Pretty much. In the post-credit scene, we see Captain Atom meeting with the Reach Ambassador and Secretary General Tsang in New York, much to G. Gordon Godfrey's disapproval. Over in Taos, New Mexico, members of the team and several of the teens who had been experimented on by the Reach in the previous episode are being questioned and counseled by Black Canary. These little therapy sessions provide some insight into what the abductees went through and plant some seeds as to what that might mean. And Diana attempts to understand, Diana. It's not Wonder Woman, it's Dinah. Attempts to understand why the Reach chose these individuals in particular.
We then cut over to Bloodhaven, where Nightwing shows Connor, McGann, and Mal where members of the team who were living in the cave will be housed now that it has been destroyed. A warehouse with just a couple of beds and a couch. That's it. No secret base. While the team will now be operating out of the basement of the Hall of Justice, this will be the closest thing to a home for these members of the team until other arrangements can be made. Dick then sends these three to the Hall of Justice to pick up what they were able to salvage from the wreckage of Mount Justice.
Over in Washington, D.C., Mal attempts and fails to make plans to stay at Karen's apartment just when Elron, that weird little robot from the cold open, arrives at the Hall of Justice. He creates a force field around the hall before Despero, the giant purple three-eyed alien monster, beams in, ready to fight.
This guy then takes out Zatanna with nothing but a look before taking on Captain Marvel. Just no big deal. Just this is what he's
No big
doing.
deal.
Throughout
all
all
good.
of this, Elron explains that Despero is apparently a gladiator who's defeated the greatest warriors of 92 star systems before coming to Earth to take on the Justice League to prove his superiority to the universe. Superboy and Bumblebee rush in to help Captain Marvel, while Mal warns that Zeta tubes and communications in general are down, so they won't be getting any outside help in this fight.
Yeah. While the fight rages on, Bumblebee is unable to wake up Zatanna or break through the force field. Back in the Reach Ambassadors meeting, Captain Atom is unable to reveal the truly nefarious intentions of the Reach, while the alien also twists certain secrets about the League to make them seem like the bad guys. Which isn't as difficult as you would hope. Their conversations cut short, however, by Captain Atom getting a notification that there's a situation at the Hall. I'm sorry, I love Captain Atom being the current head of the League with this, what problem at the Hall?
What sort of
Poor
situation?
Captain Atom. What sort of situation at the Hall? Yeah, I love it.
And
Wait, let me do the thing. Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice.
the army's been called in to take down the force field. It's not working. And inside the hall, the fight's not going too well either, as Despero is taking on Superboy and Captain Marvel without issue. McGann joins the fight, but when Mal tells her to brain blast the villain, she refuses. Captain Marvel attempts to electrocute Despero by transforming back into Billy Batson while holding on to him, but once he's just a normal human teenager, Despero does what he did to Zatanna and just shuts him down with a look, because he doesn't care about fighting a normal teenager.
Exactly. And that right there is the scene, I think, that is Jason Spizak saying, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to, or something like that. Back in the therapy sessions, you get to say that a lot in this show.
Yeah.
Back at the therapy sessions, Impulse reassures Jaime that he didn't tell Black Canary about the possible future Reach apocalypse, and says that he doesn't think they should let anyone else know because the League finding out might be the exact thing that causes it to happen. He has no idea what triggers it. The Scarab agrees with this plan and then threatens to, disintegrate Impulse, which, it's just the way it is. Back at the Hall of Justice, the fight continues. Superboy's knocked out. McGann's attempt to attack Despero psychically, but the second she taps into those powers, she has a flashback to wiping Calder's mind, and she can't bring herself to go through with it. Bumblebee is then shut down by Despero, but before he can kill her, Mal enters the scene wearing Guardian's old uniform and proclaiming himself to be Earth's true champion, Earth's secret champion.
Yes.
Dun dun dun.
And then again, back in therapy, Blue explains that the Reach tried to use the Scarab to control him, but couldn't do it without rebooting it and killing him. Dinah apparently sees this as an advantage against the aliens, but Jaime is not too sure about that. The Despero fight continues with Mal bluffing about having phenomenal powers to give Superboy and Miss Martian enough time to come up with a better plan. During a brief conversation, Connor even tells McGann that if she's not going to attack the guy psychically, fine, but she's got to do something. So she does, using her telepathy to wake up Karen, Billy, and Zatanna, who then uses her magic to possess Mal through the psychic link and turns Despero's paralysis back on him.
Yeah, that was a crazy scene. This then gives everyone else the opportunity they need to finally take down the Gladiator and his robot, which then blows up, taking the hall down in a massive explosion. Luckily, Captain Marvel was able to shield the others from the blast. Later, after several unsuccessful attempts to take down the force field with superpowers, the Reach Ambassador handily arrives and deactivates it with a small scarab-shaped device. The alien ambassador then accidentally, quote-unquote, reveals the existence of the Watchtower on camera. G. Gordon Godfrey also officially gives the Reach his stamp of approval, and Secretary Tseng invites them to remain on Earth.
We then see McGann, initially disguised as John Jones, move into her uncle's apartment rather than stay at the warehouse that Nightwing put together with the rest of the boys. She declines a call from Lagan, but when a knock at her door reveals Connor's come over to talk, she lets him in. But then in our final scene, Black Canary explains that what she's learned about the Reach and their metagene research. Blue then enters and reveals the truth about how sometime in the future he's meant to betray Earth and cause the apocalypse, as well as his plan to prevent this by removing the Scarab by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. There's a lot of random stuff going on in this episode.
Yeah.
Let's get on to this, Aster.
Superboy, are you alright?
I'm fine. Feeling the Aster.
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Do whatever your heart tells you.
Aw. Let me start with some stuff. So there's a couple things that I love about this episode. We both love Nicole Dubuque as a writer. This episode is a bit villain of the week. And even the villain, Despero, is not great. Unfortunately, Despero is yet another intergalactic despot like Mongol and other like big dark side and other big name characters we see. So you got to kind of do something a little different with him, I suppose. And this is okay. But some of the cool things that happen in this episode, for me, mostly wrapped around Mal. There's a lot of history in this episode. So I love Mal. I want to see more about how he became a part of the team. Like, there's a story there. He's clearly being trained by Black Canary, right? There's definitely, I want to see like a comic that shows like how he became part of the team, something, because he's fully being trained by Black Canary, we can tell in this episode. So he's not just casual hanging out with the team. But in the comics, Mal becomes Guardian as well. So I'm going to do a little mini secret origin for Mal. In the comics, Mal first appeared in the Teen Titans number 26 back in 1970. He saved the Titans from a street gang by beating their leader in a boxing match. I'm not sure why the Titans couldn't stop a street gang, but then he was recruited by the team. It was pretty common for teams like the Avengers and the Justice League to have a non-powered honorary member. In the Avengers and Hulk and Iron Man and Thor, it was this character named Rick Jones who ended up becoming, I think, Captain America at some point in time, or he became a character named Nomad, and like he was just, this one dude was just everywhere in the Marvel universe. And the Justice League had Snapper Carr, who we've seen in previous episodes. But as opposed to Rick Jones and Snapper Carr, Mal was actually a member of the Titans and not just, kind of a entryway viewpoint character for the readers. But he didn't obviously feel like that he fit in until he discovered this exoskeleton and put on the original Guardians suit, etc., which really feeds into this episode. But things get a little weird from there. In the pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths era in the 80s, Mal defeats a character named Azrael, which is not the Azrael that became Batman, and is given an item called Gabriel's Horn, which had some weird unspecified powers. But in the post-Crisis era, Mal never became Guardian, finds the plans to a high-tech horn that can use sonics to create spatial warps and some other stuff. And then he and Karen actually helps him build the horn and become a character called the Herald. And eventually he and Karen get married and retire from superhero life in California. But the New 52 reboot has Mal injured when that horn explodes and damages his lungs and his vocal cords. The hero Steel, who we haven't seen yet on Young Justice, I want to see if he ends up showing up. And Red Tornado used cybernetic implants and something called pseudosite technology to repair the damage and, of course, give him superpowers. So in Rebirth, Mal joins the Doom Patrol, which you've heard me mention on the show a few times, along with Bumblebee, and goes by the name of Vox. His cybernetic implants create sonic blasts and create dimensional portals, which I always saw like a parallel to the comics character of the Flash being able to vibrate at different frequencies in order to slip between dimensions and such. Hand in hand with that is this Elron character, this robot, named after the writer L. Ron Hubbard, if that wasn't obvious. It was a reoccurring robot assistant in the 90s Justice League International series, and he was one of a bunch of like robots that worked with and around Despero that had the names of various authors. You were just cracking up back there with the silliness of the 1970s through 90s.
Because you're like, if that wasn't obvious, I'm like, no, it wasn't. I did not know this until I read your thing. And
oh, really?
I had
Sorry.
no idea. And so it just amused me, especially just, I have the most weird random connection to L. Ron Hubbard, and I don't know if this is stupid or is going to end up in bloopers, but I feel like I just want to share this.
Oh, no, I have to hear this, yeah.
It's not like it's not that weird.
He's like your uncle or something?
No, not at all. Not at all. My freshman year of high school, our musical for that year was Godspell, which, if you don't know what Godspell is, look it up, friends. It's a musical. And the stage version of that musical, it's not in the movie version, but the stage musical opens with a song called The Tower of Babel. which is supposed to be various religious and philosophical leaders detailing their philosophies and getting into this whole thing, and then it gets broken up, and then we go into the whole story because it's all about Jesus. And I went to a Catholic school. But for this, the way we presented this, because we had a bigger cast and didn't just have 12 people being 12 philosophers, was each little group was supposed to be like presenting an oral presentation on this person. That was how we were framing it. We all had like posters. And somehow, because we were just divided up randomly and then kind of tweaked based on our voice types, and because I have a lower voice, I'm an alto too when I sing, I was placed in the group that was supposed to be presenting L. Ron Hubbard, and our only lyrics were "Nothing is true unless observed by you," but drawn out for like way too long. Because like other people's groups, their full lyrics were like 4 lines of song, and we had to fill the same amount of thing with a sentence.
Just that one phrase.
So it was just us drawing out every word, and it was ridiculous. So when you said this in our outline, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, you just lost it there.
I did.
So that's pretty funny.
Because it just reminds me of how every time we had to do that show, we would just hold up our poster that just had a picture of L. Ron Hubbard on it and said L. Ron Hubbard, and everyone would laugh. We didn't even have to open our mouth. We're just like, we've gone through Socrates and all of these different things, and then we just show up and we're like, hello, let us sing our one line. Now please continue talking about the real show.
In addition to L. Ron Hubbard, I think there was like a Ray Bradbury, and there was like a Captain Kirk, and like a bunch of weird pop culture and science fiction writer references for these different androids. But L. Ron, for some reason, started working with and around Despero. At some point, Despero like possessed his robot body and like a bunch of weird stuff. So Despero's a long-time Justice League villain. In fact, he first appeared in the Justice League of America #1 in 1960. That wasn't necessarily the first time they got together, but it was the first time they had a regular series. His third eye, typically it allows him to do hypnotic stuff. So like he did in the show, they just gave it the straight up hypnotic, put people in a paralytic trance. Though in the past it's expanded to things like telekinesis and telepathy and mind control and illusions and whatever the writer needs him to have, it seems like. No, that's pretty much it. Like, there's a really, really cool the Justice League animated series 2-parter that had a different version of Despero. That was very, very cool. So you should go check that out. It's a very more deep philosophical and theologic background to who he was, and not just a gladiator with, issues.
It's more than just smash things, kill people.
Yeah. I love that the Watchtower was revealed by the Ambassador, and I love that Captain Atom, and I just love Captain Atom in general. But it's so easy to feel his frustration as they just keep outmaneuvering the League left and right. Like, they are just a step ahead of everything.
Absolutely.
And it's fantastic. I also love that we get a first look at Black Lightning, who is getting his own. He has a live action series, actually, that's in production right now. Cool. I think it's going to be in the CW. I'm not sure. It's not tied into the... They say it's not tied into the Arrowverse. It'll be its own separate thing. Black Lightning is a very cool character, and you should check him out. So yeah, those are kind of my big things. What do you got going on?
I got a few things, and they're all like the exact opposite of everything that you wrote down. Just because the things that interest me about this episode are completely separate from all of the history, as they always are. I want to start with Black Canary's therapy sessions that keep happening. And this is the episode that really kind of cemented in my mind that I do think in her civilian life that this is what she does. But that's just me. I don't know. We have no proof, but it's things like the fact that this could have just been presented as we need to get information. Tell us what you know about the Reach, but it's not. It's presented as I'm here to provide counsel. I'm here to help you with whatever you're dealing with, which is important, and it's good that they do that. But also to me, it's like, we keep doing this. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep having it be Black Canary if it isn't because Black Canary has some sort of credentials of some kind and actually knows what she's doing? But it's just it's never like confirmed or not, but I like to think that this is what she does. I like to think she gets to have a cool job.
In the comics, she's a florist.
Yeah. Or if you read the more recent comics, she's a rock star.
Oh, really? Wow. I did not know
the
that.
the last reboot, I read it for a little while. I fell behind on it and just stopped picking it up. But she was like, her and a bunch of other girls were part of a girl rock band that was traveling the country, and occasionally they fought ninjas.
Nice. I was actually just reading through some of her early history stuff on the YJ Wiki, and in the comics, there is a Black Canary that was part of the original Justice Society, along with Red Tornado and all them in the back in the history. But in the comics, since Black Canary was an old character, instead of having like them reboot her or that kind of stuff, they just said that the original Black Canary gave birth to the current Black Canary, and the original one didn't have the canary cry.
Nope.
I don't think. Yeah.
Other things with this, with the scene where they present everybody with the warehouse, with the home that they all have to live in now. I appreciate that they point out that McGann is the only girl there, and that would bring up some issues, because a lot of shows would just kind of hand wave it away. Like, if we don't acknowledge it, we don't have to acknowledge that it's weird. Just don't pay attention to it. Children's show. But this is like, nah, that's kind of an awkward situation to be forcing this one girl to live in the same one-room studio apartment with 4 of her male teammates, one of whom she's dating and one of whom she used to be dating.
Yeah, not awkward at all.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I also wish we'd gotten to see more Zatanna. I understand from a narrative perspective that we have to shut her down because she could just destroy this guy. But it's not fair, and I want to see more Zatanna.
I want more. I want like a whole comic miniseries of Zatanna. I want a whole spin-off show of Zatanna. I want it all. I want all of it.
I believe they've talked before about how they had plans to do more with Zatanna, but they couldn't fit it into the full arc. They wanted to do some stuff with her and Dr. Fate, I feel like I've heard from cons, but they weren't able to.
I hope.
They were like, we've got this.
We'll see. Oh, maybe we'll get some comics.
It's too much. We can't put it all into the thing at once. And speaking of things I want more of Teenage Billy Batson, because I want this awkward 15-year-old interacting with the Justice League. Because this was the first episode where it had like dawned on me that he wasn't going to be a 10-year-old all the time. And I loved it. I was like, oh my God, you're an awkward 15-year-old trying to interact with these people. And I love it so much.
Yeah. And what's crazy too is the fact that he's 15 years old and one of the like most experienced members of the league.
So true.
Right? Crazy.
He's years younger than Zatanna, but he's been doing this for so much longer.
Yeah.
I love it. One of the big things that I love in this, that's one of the more subtle things among the giant just hit each other in the face gladiator battle, is McGann's internal struggle throughout this episode of just trying to deal with what happened with Calder and dealing, because this is the first time we see her fight after that. This is the first time we've had an episode or two to like let that sink in, and now we have to do this. We haven't had an episode or two. This is the first episode after that. What am I saying? But this is the first time we see her fight after that, and the fact that she can't do what we've been seeing her do for half a season because she has finally realized, wow, this is awful. And it's like triggering PTSD flashbacks for her, like legitimately. Like it isn't just, I'm not sure. It's like she attempts it and can't at all. And I also love that Connor knows something is wrong, but at the same time, he still calls her out and he's like, you can't, this is too important right now for you to shut down. I know something's wrong. I don't know what it is.
Yes.
But you have to keep going.
But I also, I love that he like is accepting of it. She's like, I can't do it. And he's like, great. You can't do it. Fine. Do something else. Like, you know, like he doesn't try and like talk her out of it or like tell her she's wrong or like,
Absolutely.
Kryptonian-splain her about something. Like he's just saying, you know, like, that's fine. I get it, you know, and I think there's a good reason for it. That's fine. But we need you in the game and you can do more than that. I think I just killed Emily.
Kryptonian-splaining.
Nothing is worse than Kryptonian-splaining.
Connor would never.
And he's proved over and over again that he would never.
He would never. Just, yes. And speaking of Connor, as I get to my last point on here of things I love, connected also to McGann, I love that Nightwing's response when they're like, where'd McGann go? Is just like, she said this place was too much like a boys' dorm. I love it. I appreciate it. I appreciate that we are acknowledging that this is not an ideal situation. As someone who lives in a co-ed dorm, situation at college, I'm like, yeah, no, it can be frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love that McGann has an actual solution. She's like, my uncle's out of town. I'm just going to go take his apartment and I can shapeshift so nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly. And look, just like Mrs. Berkowitz. Yes.
Mrs. Berkowitz.
I have been traveling, Mrs. Berkowitz.
Yeah. Don't question it.
It's cute because like he had made that reference like what in episode 5 or something about like maybe you can water the plants in my apartment.
And she finally does.
And she did. And they showed her watering the plants. I thought it was cute.
And with that, I also love, like, from a narrative standpoint, besides it's funny and it's cute, it's also that she needs some space and she needs some privacy as she's dealing with everything that's going on in her head. She doesn't want to be around a bunch of people for a bit. She needs to sort some things out. And I love that Connor shows up. No one is surprised that I love that Connor shows up, but I still have to mention it. And I love that they go and they have a little conversation off screen because it means he knows her well enough to know where to find her. And he knows that whatever's going on with her is way more important than whatever issues they're dealing with right now.
They're having.
He's willing to like set all of that aside because he knows her well enough over 5 years that he's like, something is seriously wrong. This is not just something that we can ignore and hope it's better. We need to talk. No,
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And I kind of like that they didn't show it.
Yeah.
Show the conversation as well, which I think is, I don't know. It's all you needed to see, I guess. Yeah. And again, it's that idea of what to show and what not to show is important. And particularly when you're talking about the relationships as well.
It would have just been a full conversation of her repeating what we saw last episode.
Right. Exactly.
We as the audience know what happened, so we know what she told him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd say let's move on to the Canary debrief, but there's not a lot, and I'm going to couch whatever we do have in Crashing the Mode, so let's do that.
Stick around.
Tell us something we don't know yet.
Class is in session.
We can't risk altering the time stream. We do that, we're all feeling the mode.
In Crashing the Mode, we'll be discussing spoilers for Young Justice and the general DC universe. If you are spoiler wary, please consider this your warning. So I said I was going to couch the Canary debrief in the Crashing the Mode, but there isn't much to talk about in either, really. This episode set up some outmaneuvering by the Reach. That was very cool. It outed the Watchtower, which was, yet again, this layering of distrust they're building in the Justice League, which I think is brilliant. But otherwise, it was really one of the rare Villain of the Week episodes. It has some fun Easter eggs, like using Elron and some, nods to the larger DC universe that may come into play in season 3, because once again, we have more of these intergalactic players showing up on Earth. But otherwise, it didn't have really many spoilers or big reveals. It was just minor plot stuff that was important, like the Black Canary interviews and things like that. But a lot of the episode was taken up with this fight scene. And it was a cool introduction of Mal, their version of Mal becoming Guardian and some things like that. But otherwise, it was a bit of a humdrum action episode.
I am going to throw out a Canary debrief that I'm going to make up on the spot right now because I just thought of something.
Do it. Do it.
About knowing when you can't include something because you're focused on everything else a little too much. With apparently things I find out when I go through the Ask Greg archives looking for other things when I need sources for stuff. I stumbled across something where Greg talked about how this episode technically takes place on the anniversary of the death of the Graysons. And while they...
What?
Yes, it was apparently April 1st. I will send you the link, Rich, so you can read it for yourself.
It was April 1st, and they made a lot of references. Like, Captain Marvel was like, is this Plastic Man's April Fool's joke or whatever?
But that is apparently the same day that Dick's parents died. And they knew this going in, but they also knew that there was no way they could do justice to that and to Nightwing dealing with that, with everything else that was going on. So their approach was just this is a fact of our universe, but just assume something happened off screen. We'll leave that to whatever you think Nightwing would have done on this day, because Nightwing doesn't interact with most of the episode. So I just wanted to throw that out there as both a fun fact, fun sad fact, and also knowing when you can't pack everything into an episode, even if it would make some sense to try.
Yeah, I really kind of wish they'd have flopped out the Despero with Nightwing, but I mean, some of that is obviously has to be, you know, colored with my love for Dick Grayson, but the Guardian thing was, I think, is important, and I think it needed to happen. I think watching the fallout of McGann with her powers, I think on paper, everything checked off for things to do. It's just when the Despero take just wasn't, I mean, it's just this intergalactic dude showing up, you know, beating up people to prove his manliness. And it's just a story, it's a story arc that happens so much, and it's happened through so many animated series, and it's just this toxic masculinity turned to 11 and weirdness, and I just, that one doesn't appeal to me. And Despero, like I said, that Justice League animated episode is really interesting because he was born with this third eye, and he was banished from his people, and he went out and did like the 40 days in the desert, you know, kind of a thing, and he stumbled across this living flame entity called the Flame of Pytar, and so it has all of these, like, you know, the Christianity kind of allusions, and the flaming bush and the talking fire, and like, it's a really kind of cool episode, and he has his powers, he can give them to other people, and they end up being almost as powerful as like with the Green Lantern Corps. And so he becomes this despot, you know, but he's doing it like, it's like a religious despot. Like, he wants to bring the wisdom of the Flame of Pytar to other planets. And so it's a little less like just Mongol or Darkseid just wanting to by force take over the world. There was a little bit more story behind it. And he was a much more relatable villain in that episode. And this one, it was just, it was whatever. It's villain of the week.
And people who know me know that I get bored in long, drawn-out action sequences. The thing that salvages it for me is that everybody is still talking to each other and still working things out. If this was just, let's fight a gladiator, I would have nothing good to say about this episode.
Yeah, I agree. I saw that you put that link into an Ask Greg thing. We're going to put that in the show notes. What's that to?
That's the thing where he talks about it being Dick Grayson's anniversary of his parents' death.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes too. Sweet. Yeah. I would say that we've crashed that mode, but there wasn't much crashing. So we'll let the mode go this episode, I guess. All right, let's move on to some fan service.
I've admired your stance on animal rights for years.
So this week in fan service, I have a little AMV from heymonwebejammin, which we featured something from them a little while back, but we're featuring another one. This one is called Superboy and Miss Martian, The Last Time. It's a SuperMartian AMV, if that wasn't obvious by the title.
Right.
Set to a song by Taylor Swift and Gary Lightwood, Lightbody. I've watched too much Shadowhunters. That's the problem.
His name is Lightbody? What an interesting last name.
Apparently. And I called him Gary Lightwood because of the Shadowhunters show on Freeform, where there's an entire family named the Lightwoods, and it's stuck in my head, apparently.
Is it any good?
It's decent. It's pretty good. It's a little silly sometimes, but you know.
All right. That's fair.
We're just going to talk about a different show instead of this.
Ignore that fan service. All right, so what's this one about? This
song video and the scene at the end of this episode in which Connor shows up at McGann's door are just linked in my mind, and I cannot think of one without the other, because that is the central scene in this video, but it is about it being the last time that you're going to talk to someone. And it's never the last time, but you keep telling yourself that it's going to be, that you're going to let this relationship go, and you just can't. And it's good. I really like this one. It's one of those ones that kind of holds a little special place in my heart because I can't separate it from this episode. Every time I see this episode and it gets to that scene, I'm like, remember that Taylor Swift song? I remember that Taylor Swift song.
Nice.
Well, so they're like we'd showcase it here.
Previous AMVs too. Like, I didn't hear, This Is War until I saw it on the AMV. And so, like, anytime I hear the song now, the AMV is just running in my head while I'm watching it. There's no way I can separate them now. And I'm like, hey, where's that audio clip of Green Arrow talking to Roy? That needs to be in there. It's not really in there.
Yes, I do that with so many things.
All right, well, I think we can wrap up this mission and head out of the crater that was the cave. The best way... Yeah. The best way to support the show, as always, is with a 5-star review or rating or review on iTunes or whatever rating system your podcatcher of choice uses. They really, really do help us spread the word for the show.
Also, you should go #BuyYJComics on Comixology, and we would tell you to #keep binging YJ, but by the time this goes up, Young Justice won't be on Netflix anymore, and we'll be very sad. You can still purchase the series from whatever digital streaming site you would like to purchase it from so that you can still watch it until the DC streaming site goes up, but you can't binge it on Netflix anymore, sadly. But you can also now use #YoungJusticeOutsiders when talking about the season 3 that will be on that DC streaming site. And if you want to help us get more episodes, more Secret Origins, more actual play podcasts, and so much more, please consider supporting us through Patreon. For just a few dollars a month, you can help us do even more with the show while getting some great rewards for yourself. And remember,
stay whelmed, everyone.
You've been listening to Whelmed, the Young Justice Files podcast. Our hosts are Rich Howard and Emily Booza. Our editor and producer is Neal Powell. Our theme was composed by Emily Mio. Our logo was created by Kevin Bates. Whelmed is a fan-made podcast and is not officially affiliated with DC Comics, DC Entertainment, Warner Brothers Animation, and any other owners of Young Justice or its related source material. As such, these companies have sole ownership of all symbols, images, names, logos, and proprietary material related to Young Justice. Original content of this podcast is ours under Creative Commons. Thanks for listening, and stay whelmed.